Okay, so we have, let's see, we got Sheridan and Monica as guest speakers today, and then afterwards, Bruce in Italy is gonna be on the panel. This is the first time that we have such a topic using the ukulele for voice training. So we've invited two vocalists and vocal teachers to talk about the subject and answer questions. So let's see. Dan and Mark are with us. Let's see, Mark is not quite on screen yet, but shall we get started? Yeah, we have about 90 minutes, so I think plenty of time for questions in the panel. So how about, you know, we'll answer the questions that we've addressed, that we posed, which are how to use the ukulele to find the correct starting note of a song, how to start in tune, how to stay in tune with your voice, how to hear and listen to your voice while using the ukulele, and different vocal exercises with the ukulele, and how to find your optimal vocal range. Shall we start with Sheridan? Well, welcome Moses and Cynthia. Great. Hi. We'll start with Sheridan, if you'd like to unmute. Okay.
Okay, I think I'm live.
Yes, you are.
Get a ukulele, and unlike Monica, I don't come from the world of academia. I've been a singer since at least thinking of myself as a singer since I was 10 or 11, and self-taught to play guitar, and in the last 10 years have been playing ukulele and actually teaching at adult music camps and working with a lot of adults and teens, and I actually have a couple of preteen voice students as well. But I have been curious about how voice works most of my life, and I'm still exploring it. So I've read lots of books, but I studied voice in my 20s. But the woman who was teaching me, her format was opera, which is kind of like controlled yelling, but she didn't really talk about how the human body actually generates the sound, and I was into harmony and overtones and all kinds of other things that the human voice generates. So I've kind of been exploring that most of my life, and still exploring it at 73. So anyway, when I take on a voice student, the first thing I want them to do, that I don't want to teach them to do, I give them some recommendations for free, is, since we're a wind instrument, is to develop their wind. And that's really something they can do, sitting at a desk, driving a car. I start with a couple of techniques that give them an idea of how the diaphragm connects with the upper part of the body. And if you cough gently with your hand tucked over your belly and your diaphragm, like that, you feel it tuck in. And by the same token, if you take a breath and you push out, resisting the air with your tongue, and just go s, 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 and you're pushing from down here, then you kind of start to establish the connection between the top and the bottom, which in my mind is the essential engine for generating sound, and that's the wind. And the next part of that process is, how do you develop it so that you can sing longer? And so the first thing I tell people is, learn to get a breath by getting rid of the breath in front of it. So if you exhale, and I'll give you an example, like if I go, I can still say hello, I can still say, how are you, how do you do? There's still something left, even when you wring every bit of air out. So what that does, if you do exhale as much as you can, is it enables you to take a good breath. And part of what I learned in musical theater and opera is good posture in the first place. Shoulders are relaxed, chest is high. In opera, they have a phrase called wearing the jewel. It's like your shoulders are back, and it's like you want everybody to see this thing. And it's the same thing you want to when you play a little tiny instrument like ukulele. People tend to hunker around it. That's not as good for being able to get a breath and being able to generate sound. So the other thing I do is once you learn to take a breath and do that pulsing hiss, the other part is take a breath and go see how far you can hiss. And one of the things I ask my students is to see if they can get out to about 20 seconds. Once you get there or beyond, and some people can get out to a minute, then you're actually going to be able to sing longer phrases, and you're going to be able to generate higher notes. So the other thing I do when I'm adding sound to that, a similar exercise, is I have people sing one note and just count numbers. Do something like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 and 11 and 12 and 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, and you get the idea is that you use up all that breath, and the next breath will come in, and it gets you used to making a long phrase. So the other trick you can do is just pick any song you know and sing as far as you can without taking breaths. And so that's the breath development part. That's the first step. The other thing I do that's probably different than most people is I like to have people discover their core best resonant sound. And that is by just trusting that it's okay to make whatever noise your body can generate. So watch, if I chew a vowel and I go, wow, 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 you notice that at certain shapes of the mouth, or, as I get the tongue arch, all of a sudden the sound pops louder. That's what I want somebody to do, is to identify what's the biggest sound they're making. Wow, wow. So if they can make a big sound, then what I have them do is, since we sing, most of the sound comes out on vowels, I have my students start with the smallest, brightest vowels like E and A. And so they're going to sing something that sounds like A or E. It's a nice bright sound. It's resonant in the mask and nose and teeth. And it's kind of like bluegrass. And they have a saying in bluegrass circles, bluegrass, sung from the heart and through the nose. So it's kind of you're getting in touch with your fundamental resonator, which is your mask and nasal passages and sinuses. And when you speak, it's the same thing. You want that voice to be out there in the teeth, and don't be so concerned that it sounds weird, because it's yours. And that's, I think, that the hardest thing to do is to convince people that any sound they can generate is theirs to own, and to have fun with it. Make as weird a sound as you can and find your biggest ones. And then the trick for singing in language is take your best vowel. Let's say, if most people take a vowel like or o, and they go back in the throat away from the mask, that sound doesn't carry but 5 or 10 feet. But if you can go e and slowly reshape it into the other vowels, you're still connected with the mask, and you've got a nice bright sound out in front of you. So I just try to have people visualize, their sound going away from them. So it's all kind of coming, it's not just coming out the mask. You know, it's like the teeth and the nose and the sinuses are all helping. This is our natural resonator. And what I want them to get in touch with is their own natural resonant sound that they can adapt to all the vowels. So, and one of the ways you can use the ukulele is if you can make a resonant, non-breathy sound. In other words, if I go, let's say, if I go, ee, that sound's not going to carry very far, but if I put it in the nose and go, ee, you can hear it echoes in the ukulele. You can hear the sound go on. So now the next step, my third step, is learning to control the pitch by breath alone. In other words, most amateur singers tend to tighten their vocal cords to change pitch. But the reality of being a wind instrument is that the air pressure is going to help change the pitch on its own. And the other thing is there's going to be a spot in the mask where that sound amplifies by itself. So what I do with people is I have them, you can start, with it. I love B flat because that's kind of a comfortable, to range for both men and women, and have them do little 3-note runs like E, or an octave lower, E, and then, since that's a movable chord, E, and so forth. You move it up to E. And once they can do the little 3-note runs, and when I'm working with somebody, I'm observing not only their body posture, but I'm looking to see whether they're tensing their neck to try and change pitch, because I'm trying to get them to do just use the air pressure to change it. So the next step is to do little triads, and that's, B flat is the only chord that, especially if you have a low G ukulele, is a perfect triad with an octave on top. So, typical vocalese exercise would be me, 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 me. And if you use M or nay, N, nay, 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 your tongue will curl and kind of force the sound into your mask. And so same thing, you can move those up. Nay, 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 nay. And then learn to make the open vowels. Na, 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 na. No, 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 no. Ni, 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 ni. So those are kind of typical classical, warm-up moves. And when you're really getting loose, you actually go for the octave. So you're doing you're doing a full octave arpeggio. And so it's like, nay, 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 nay. And if, and once you get your range, you go, nay, 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 nay. You can make those kind of sounds as well. So one of the things, and I also have people sing a little exercise where they stand and they visualize that high note as going away from them. So they do something like this. It is easy over there. And they're pointing away and thinking of that sound as going out and not reaching up for it. Because high notes aren't up to go get them. They're just generated. So you do the same thing. It is easy over there. It is easy. And you want to go until you get to the top of your range. This is how you actually end up stretching it. And the last step is, and this is one of your questions, is, how do you find out what your range is? Well, you'll find that if you do these things and learn to connect your sounds in the mask, you can learn to make smaller ones when you get to the top of your range. So I'm going to start this, and you can learn to, once you can make a non-breathy sound, it's resonant. Listen to this. You can hear the sound, your ukulele will resonate with you. So that's what I like to teach, is that if you, and by the same token, one of the questions was, well, how do you find your note, to start? Well, when you play your major chord, this is another reason I love B flat, is that most songs are going to start on one part of the triad or another. This land is your land, this land is my land. So you're going to start on the fifth. And there's other ones that start on the third. Let me see. Now I forgot the song I was going to use as an example. But anyway, the other part of going to find out how to stretch your range is learn to make a small range at the top of your range. So it's like if I'm here and I can make a sound that's then you move that up and do it very gently. You don't have to make a big sound. I'm not a believer necessarily in head and chest voice. It's all mask voice. Just as you get lower, you feel it more in the lower part of the body. It all should engage with the front. And if you can make the high notes gently and they're not breathy, usually you can add pressure to them. So you can actually it's now or never, my love. If you can make a small sound, you can actually learn to honk it. And I've had a little crud in my throat, so I don't have all my high range right these days. But anyway, that's the essential part of learning to, breathe, resonate, move the resonance, use the breath to change pitch, and also learn to sing longer phrases. And I have just one other little brief thing in terms of advanced performance techniques. And that is, this is how you get a breath, is that you finish a phrase with energy. In other words, a lot of people think, oh my God, I'm running out of breath, I've got to take a breath. But really what you want to do is you want to energize the end of the phrase, use up the breath, and the next one will fall in. So the breath is really going to happen before you sing, not at the end of where you sing, even though effectively it's the same place. And I'll give you an example. I'll sing just a little bit a cappella. There was a boy, a little boy, a long, long time ago. His eyes were bright, his step was light, his heart was all aglow. There's the next breath. And all his world was young and gay, a magic carousel. And you finish the phrase with energy, and your next breath will come in. The audience won't even hear you take a breath. And so that's more of an advanced technique. The other thing that allows you to sing farther is once you're generating sound, it's like when you're pushing out with your breath, it's like water coming out of a faucet. And as long as sound is coming and you take the consonants and whisk them through, it's like taking a knife and whisking through a flow of water coming out of a faucet. You don't want the flow to change, but you want the audience to be able to hear the difference in the word sounds. So, here's and part of the way that you do that is that there are 4 consonants that S, T, P, and S, T, F, and P, which we don't voice. But if you do voice them, then all of a sudden S becomes Z, T becomes D, P becomes B, and F becomes V. And another one not to hang on is H. In fact, it's almost better to almost eliminate it. It's like use the British H-less sound when you're singing. And I'll give you an example of that. It's like, watch what I'm going to do with take me home, country roads, to the place I belong, West Virginia, Mountain Mama. So what you want to do is, if you add sound to those, you'll be able to sing longer phrases. The other thing too is that words that tend to disappear, or letters, consonants that tend to disappear, will be L, N, and M. So technically, mama, you sing louder behind those, and the audience will be able, basically you're doing these for the audience's benefit. They'll be able to understand the words. And so, one last thought, just if you sing pianissimo or quiet, it takes just as much breath energy as it does to sing loud. And so the last thing is, this is a stagecraft thing, is that if you're playing in front of an audience and that mass tends to intimidate you, there's 2 things you can do. One is sing to one person at a time, as if you were having a conversation, and finish the thought or phrase with them. And when you take your breath or the thought changes, breathe and move with your eyes to the next location. And over the course of the song, you can paint your picture on the audience, and they will feel like you have sung that song to them, and you won't feel like, oh my God, I got to look at the sky, or close my eyes, or visualize them as all naked, or whatever the other tricks are. But so that's what I have. And if you like, I'll this little vocal, I call it a vocal progress chart, I'll put in the chat field. I have it on my desktop here, and let me find it here.
Wow, thank you very much, Sheridan.
And here we go. There's a PDF that you should be able to read.
Okay.
And you'll notice on the chat field, you actually can save it to your computer if you want right now. And that's pretty much everything I have to say.
Great. Let's Sheridan, you're staying till the end, right? So
Yeah, I'll stay.
great. So why don't we hold off all the questions till the end when we have a discussion panel? Yeah, so if you haven't, I have some questions, so I'll just get saved to the end. Thanks so much, Sheridan. Let's have Monica. All
Hey.
Hey.
Okay, so I spent this morning really thinking of all this stuff, and I'm trying to put it into a way that makes sense. Um, and I did send you a PDF. Um,
Yes. Are you going to
so my
use it or do you want me to put
You
it
know
up
what?
now?
You could no, send it out to the people that are here if they want it.
Okay.
It's really pretty much what I'm going to say. Because it's such a big topic, trying to narrow it and focus it in is interesting. What I love about this, Sheridan's point of view and my point of view, and I know all the other points of view. I often encourage people to have more than one music teacher because something that I say will make total sense to one person and not to another. And then another music teacher will say it in just a slightly different way, same thing, and that will reach that learner. So it's always good to have more than one, one set of delivery. I like that. Um, I've been talking a lot about the culture of singing in our society and our society, I guess, meaning our own communities. Um, I would guess that Canada and the US are similar in some ways. I'm not sure about Australia, Dan. I bet you're more rowdy. As just no, just that's because you're Dan. Um, but for example, I was in Ireland one year and my hotel was above a pub, and every night everybody's singing their hearts out. Um, you'd not find that in Alberta, in Canada, where I live. Pubs, nobody's singing along. Are you kidding me? They wouldn't be so brave or so. I wish they were. The only time we sing publicly often is happy birthday, and we don't always get that octave leap, and then it changes key right midway. Um, we sing our national anthems. Not everybody, not all the time, but we're encouraged to sing our national anthems. So those are like the times in public that people sing. If they sing in a choir or if they go to church or they go to camp, depending on the schools that they have gone to, perhaps they were encouraged to sing. But otherwise, I feel like there's a little bit of a void. Also, because fewer and fewer people are going to church, or it can be the case, fewer people are singing. And I know that if some of I guess my Mennonite friends, their whole thing, they all sing in 4-part harmony all the time because that's how they grew up. They just grew up singing, and everything was in harmony. So they always heard the harmony around them. So it's not a foreign concept. But some families don't sing at all. Some families do. One of the things that I do in my classroom, because I'm teaching in elementary, I have a big book, a big binder, probably 200 songs. It's songs that I've collected that every kid should know. And some students that I have know the songs, and some students have never heard any of them. So just sharing singing with people is, I think, a task as musicians, as leaders that that can be our role. Um, I'm going to address group singing a little bit more than the individual singer. Some individual singer, but Sheridan, your tips on the mask and the breathing and techniques and so forth, I'm going to shy away a little bit from that because I'm thinking about my own adult community ukulele circle. I'm not sure what everybody's roles are. I find myself, I sing in different voices all the time. If I'm singing for children in school, I'm modeling for them in a childlike voice, more of a childlike voice, no vibrato, not full on, not my oratorio voice, which is what I'll sing with when I'm singing in my adult choir when it's singing. When we do the Messiah, that's a different voice that I use. And I don't use either of those voices when I do my ukulele circle, when I do my community circle. So I guess it's finding the right voice for the right occasion, and also I guess being sensitive to genres. Sheridan, like you said, the bluegrass thing, right? The sound is a different sound than a lullaby that somebody might sing. So the genre will have an impact on the vocal production and the styling, and also your comfort level. Okay, so the question is, what kind of singing do you want to do, or does your group want to do, and what is the goal? So if you're singing opera or oratorio, go get a professional teacher to teach you all of the breathing techniques, the singing in the mask, the vowel production. Go find somebody to teach you that. Are you singing in a rock band? That's a different set of pipes. Are you singing? And if you're singing in a rock band, or if you want to sing like the people that do on The Voice or Idol or whatever, beware of vocal nodules. Beware of vocal health. If you're going to be a belter, then, I would find a teacher that is sensitive to how to do that properly without you damaging your vocal folds. Unless you want to sing like Steven Tyler, then you want all those nodules, and the rougher the better. And seriously, that's a goal. Now, when you hear him speak, you can hear the gravel in his voice, right? He's got the notes there all the time. So that's another thing that is sometimes, wanted and sometimes not so wanted. If you're singing in an auditioned choir, it might be good for you to get some training. If you're singing in a non-auditioned choir, knock yourself out. Do your best. If you're singing in your room, knock yourself out. Just sing. Do what comes naturally. Nobody's critiquing you. Nobody's worried about it. Just sing and enjoy yourself. The question is, are you leading an ukulele group? Be kind. Be encouraging, because there will be in that group some people who are very comfortable singing, and there will be some people in the group who are absolutely not comfortable singing. Maybe being gentle with throwing around all the theory and terminology, maybe just introduce it a little bit with a pretty basic definitions so that people start becoming familiar with the vernacular, and they also have context and experience. When you're talking about the mask, lead them through some mask exercises so that they are not thinking, because I know some of my people would be going, where's the mask? Which mask? What the mask? I don't have my mask. They might not understand, right? So I'm not dumbing it down, but I'm aware of what people are, what they come in with. What do they know musically? What's their background? Building into your sessions some basic warm-up exercises, stretching for your fingers. It's something that I haven't done enough of, stretching your fingers, stretching your voice a little, doing some vocal warm-ups. It's a good thing to build into your every lesson. Remind yourself to do that. Or what is it that you do that is the thing that begins the time together? Do you have a song that you use to gather everybody all the time? Do you exit with that kind of a thing? A song can be the warm-up. It doesn't have to be an exercise, but figure out what it is that you're going to do that will serve that purpose. Building confidence in your musicians with praise, with practice, guiding them when guiding is necessary. I think that correcting people is tricky. Guiding them is probably the better angle to come at it. And really you want people to enjoy what they're doing, to build their confidence, to get better, to develop their skills, and to most of all, to enjoy it. I sometimes say, if you do it differently, or if you do it quote unquote wrong, nobody's going to die here. Everybody's just fine. If you do it differently than I do, that's fine. If you hold the instrument differently than I do, I'm going to give you some tips. I'd like you to do this, but if you don't, it's okay. We're not here to, be so persnickety and finicky that people are uncomfortable or unwelcome. Model playing and singing the best that you can. I think for ukulele circles. I'm going to keep using that as the area of what we're looking at here, what I'm looking at here today. So singing in your most natural singing voice, and Sheridan, you mentioned that too, finding people's natural singing voice. Probably not my oratorio singing voice, not my Messiah singing voice. And in this case, the loudest playing or the loudest singing isn't always what's required. Blending is a good idea. Blending is a really good idea. Soloing is good too, but know when both of those two things should happen. I had a player join a performance that my group did. Performance meaning we were invited to sing for an event. It wasn't a performance. It was more of a, oh, if you happen to be wandering by and you hear us, you're going to like it. And this one guest who came was using a pick the entire time. And he was, of course, then playing the loudest the entire time. And I managed to survive it. But had we done one other song, I would have said, hey, John, I really actually need you to this song, not use your pick. But it's like, you don't have to be the loudest to indicate that you're the best, or that, blending is a good idea, and not using a pick for me. If we're singing as a group, if we're playing as a group, being sensitive to that. Blending is awesome. As a leader, knowing the music is a good idea. Does the genre ask for different arrangements? For each song, consider the key. Most of the time, like I know that a lot of groups use the Beloff books. They're pretty much in good keys, like they're pretty singable. But if for yourself, for your students, for them to understand the idea of transposing, teach them how to transpose. Because if they're singing at Aunt Mabel's 80th anniversary or birthday party, and you have to sing her favorite song, and the song comes in the key of A, and you'd rather sing it in the key of D, for you to be able to transpose is awesome. So it's not that complicated. Teach your students that, teach the community people that, so that they can master a song that otherwise they go, oh, that's too high for me. Well, but if you just change the key, it might work for you. So teaching them that, I think, is a good thing. For each song, consider the style, the tempo, the strumming pattern, mix it up. And I like to always have an introduction. It sets the piece. And I have an ending. I have heard it said that a piece of music, when performed, there should be a frame of silence around it. And then it begins. And it should begin together, and it should end together. And then there's that frame of silence around it. Sometimes I've been in a sing and a strum and hum, play with other people, and okay, here we go. Here's the song. Boom, just right in, no count in, no, and it feels like the tempo is always the same, pretty fast. Everything is pretty fast, always the same tempo, and always pretty loud, and it isn't as satisfying musically. So giving thought to tempo, dynamics, different strumming patterns. People sometimes get stuck on strumming patterns. What strum do I use? What strum do I use? Well, start with one. If it feels like you could do it differently, try another one. There's no right or wrong. Tempi, there. You can do a song quickly. You can do a song slower. It's your arrangement. Figure it out. Figure it out with your group too. So counting things in as a leader so that everybody's in the same, the beat is internalized beforehand, and we all start together, and there you go. It's a good thing. So consider different tempos for different songs, because it makes it more musical. Okay, finding your singing voice. That was one of the questions. How do people find their singing voice? People who don't have any clue at all. That's a tricky question. Relax, 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 relax. No tension. When you see people and they're straining, it's like, relax, relax. Have you seen a baby breathing when they're laying down? Their belly goes up, right? We all used to do that. We used to breathe all the way down, right? So no tension, no breathing up with the, take a deep breath. Not that. No big breath with the chest moving. Breathe all the way down. Fill those lungs like as if they were a balloon and you were filling up inside your body. Okay. Because you're all in Zoom, you can do this in the comfort of your own space. Give it a try vocally. I can't hear you. It's not quite fair. Just saying. Just opening your throat like the beginning of a yawn. Just the beginning. If you open it to the full yawn, too open, right? So just the beginning of a yawn. Say ah. Just speak it, sorry. Open that throat. Change the pitch. Just feel that opening. Say the ah. If you can change that to a singing voice or sustaining that sound, whatever pitch is comfortable for you. Take a breath. Maybe breathe out and then say the ah. Just explore the ah for a little bit. And then try to do ah from lower sound to higher sound, like ah, up and down. Ah. Sustain an ah and just go up and down. Sirens. Ah. Go as high as you can, go as low as you can, circle it around. You could start on ooh on sirens too. Ooh. Oohs might be better for sirens. Ooh. It's a little bit, it's automatically a little bit open. Ooh. Sometimes I'll do a siren and I'll say, echo me. I'm going to do a siren. You echo me. And I'm going to stop at a certain spot. So, ooh. Now your turn. Ooh. Try to match that pitch. Or I'll stop. I'll say, let's do it together. Stop on the same sound as me. So that stopping on the same sound, trying to match the pitch. Trying to sound the same. Can you do that? Can you match pitch? Can you sound the same? Most people, if they can listen well enough, they can match a pitch. Do you know those plastic tubes that you swing around, those little corrugated tubes? If you put it at somebody's ear and if you sing gently, ooh, they hear only you. Sometimes they can match if you give them that sound like that. It's kind of a nice tool. It's also fun to swing around and make sounds. But, you think you can get them at 7-Eleven during the summer. So if you see one of those, pick it up. It's $1 or something. But it's a pretty good thing for you to sing, of course, very gently because it's so loud, but put the bigger end on the other person's ear. And if you sing into it, ooh, and then they could sing into it. Now, of course, COVID, so we're not using the same mouthpieces, but you could figure that out. But just having people aware and listening, because I really feel like singing is as much about your voice as it is about your ear. When we're trying to sing together, if we're not hearing it, then we can't match it. And our goal is to match. We want to match. We want to sound similar. Back to that, the ah thing. Also going from an ah to a hum. That's when you can feel the mask. Can you feel your nose vibrating a little bit? Go from ah to If your molars have to also be apart, your mouth can't be totally shut. So can you feel some vibration happening here? Some resonance happening? Something's going on in here. That buzz, that's a nice, that's the mask. that's singing there. And then after you hum, if you can go, ma, that's an interesting way to get a nice elongated sound, and change the vowels. Me, mo. So get that little buzz happening, and then open your mouth and let it come out as a song. Those are some good warm-ups. Singing voice, get your singing voice happening. There is a difference between your singing voice and your talking voice. At its most elemental level, I say to my little people, repeat after me. Hello, Mrs. Dear. Hello, Mrs. Dear. Hey, Mrs. Dear. Hello, Mrs. Dear. And I say, look what a miracle you are. You've just spoken, you've whispered, you've called, and you've sung. And I just have them do that several times. I'll speak, I'll sing, and I need them to feel the difference between their speaking voice and their singing voice. And I say, I don't have to come over to your head and switch that little switch to make it your singing voice, or switch it down to make it your whisper voice. You can do it just like that. So just having them physically feel the difference, and I think adults might need that too. Some adults do. They need to feel the difference between this voice, their yelling voice, their whispering voice, their calling voice, and then throw in a singing voice in there, and they don't even realize you just caught them in the act of singing. Okay, lip trills, another good little warm-up. You know, when you take swimming lessons, it's really floppy, right? You want to make bubbles. When you're playing the trumpet, it's like the opposite of floppy, but there's your embouchure is really, it's working really hard. So we're in between those two. We're not floppy and we're not trumpet. Sometimes if you have trouble getting enough tension, sometimes it helps to just put your fingers on either side of your mouth. Try that. Go up and down. I'm so glad this is being recorded. That's all I'm saying. Just do some sirens. And this, I don't know why that is, that it helps. It makes it not so blah. Anyway. You can also feel your muscles in your belly area have to do a little bit of work, because you're putting so much, you're exerting way differently than if you're just talking. So a little bit of the sirening business with the lip trill. It really does relax things inside here too. Another fellow that I learned my very favorite voice warm-up from, Stephen Hatfield. He's a crazy Canuck. He's crazy. He would like that word. He's crazy, but he also arranges the most interesting, unique choral arrangements. Lots for children, also for adults. He does all kinds of different cultural music pieces and has very, very clever arrangements. Anyway, he went one step further from this to here. So pushing up your cheeks. Okay, I'm just saying, I know that you look really dumb when you do this, but if we all do it together, we won't feel self-conscious. So take your fingertips, put them on your cheek, push up your cheeks. Push those little chubby cheeks right up to your eyes almost. Yep. Oh, you'll look good. Okay, so that little exercise of pushing the cheeks up. Also, this is so. Sheridan was talking about 1 3 5 3 1, and the B flat chord giving you the 1 3 5 1. Yes. So the in the notes that I have here, I have put the numbers 1 3 5 1 3 5 4 2 7 5 4 2 1. So you figure that out. So if you start low. wouldn't do this with my ukulele group because it's way too many numbers and too much of a melody. But for yourself, this kind of an arpeggio, starting low. Up a half step. Up a half step. Or whatever amount of step that was. Okay, if you do a few of those, soon you will be singing way higher than you ever thought you could sing. I'm an alto 2 in my choir, contralto. When I do this, not after 2 years of not singing, but when I do this, I have gotten higher than a high C. Never, ever, ever in my singing range could I ever do that. But in this lip trill exercise, and then after I've stretched low and high through this lip trilling thing, I'm seriously the most warmed up feeling that I am ever. So give it a try in your car or whatever. I used to work for the Edmonton Symphony Orchestra as an education manager, and I'd have to lead a sing-along. So out I'd go and feel extremely afraid, but very outwardly confident. But I'd stand in the sound lock between the stage and the outside, and I'd do this, and I honestly, my voice never better. So you should try that as a warm-up. You might like it a lot. Okay, matching pitch. Matching pitch. You know the little app you got on your phone, the one that's got the chromatic thing? So not the one that's on your instrument so much, but the one that has a meter. When you tune your instrument, where's my tuner? I just changed my strings, so my strings are going out of tune. Is that a G? Pretty close? Hopefully I'm close to you because I don't know where my... Anyway, so tune your instrument and then try to sing it and see what happens to the meter. So try to, wherever this is, you're tuning this to a G, and then try to sing with it, and then see if your voice makes the meter do the same thing. What I found was my instrument makes a really nice, green, nice, perfect, but my own voice goes, blah. It's not as clear, which is very interesting, but at least it's close. So see if you can, after you tune the string, see if you can also sing that note and see what happens to the meter. So matching pitch like that might be a good little exercise. Everybody in the room doing it on their own with the app might be a nice thing. On that meter, when you're reading it, make your voice go from here, go a little higher and go a little lower. See what happens to that meter. Might be a good thing to do with yourself on your own. All of your students, all of your adults could spend a little bit of time and see if they could match. Singing the strings. Yes, okay, that's a really good thing to try to do too. So we got a song happening. Skip, skip, skip to my loo, skip, skip, whatever. So skip, skip, skip to my loo, skip, skip, skip to my loo. So you're all familiar with singing the strings. Moses, I saw you say yes. Mark, you got that? You got the singing of the strings. And Sheridan, are you familiar with singing the strings? Yes. So I haven't done enough of this with my students. Dan, you know singing the strings, you're eating now. Yeah, okay, good. All right, I'm trusting that Heather, Cynthia, and Bruce might know that too. I think that's a really good way to practice matching pitch and becoming aware. Are you singing the same thing? Very few people have no clue about what they sound like. Most people coming to an ukulele group, if somebody really says, I can't sing, I can't sing, I can't sing, then you're the strum-o-longer person, or you're the cajon player, or whatever it is. Let's include you in whatever way you feel comfortable. Let's see if we can propel you to become a singer. Okay, the last thing that I think I have here is finding the first pitch of a song. Huh. Okay, I do love the Beloff books because every page has the first note, written on the chord chart. That's the only book that I've seen that does that. And what a clever thing for them to have done. So that's a good idea. Make sure all of your students, because probably they've all got the yellow book or the blue book, know what that means. How do they read that? How do they know that, okay, that indicates where is the first note that I sing? That's an awesome thing to do. Another way could be to play the first chord. So Skip to My Lou, I know it's pretty basic, and I'm not going up any Beatles songs on purpose, but Skip to My Lou. So if I'm on a C chord and here's the chord. Okay, so it could be the fourth string. Skip, skip. No, that's too low. Skip, skip. No, it does not. No, it does not. Skip, skip. For me, it makes sense. It might be hard to fool me, but try playing the first chord and try playing each string and seeing if that sounds good. The other thing that you could try is play the last phrase of a song, because then it might make sense to you orally. You might be able to figure out how you fit in. And then the last note might magically lead you to the first note of the next phrase. I don't know if that helps either. It might though, because skip to my Lou, my darling. Ba-da. I know that skip to my Lou, my darling is how the phrase ends, but the next verse goes, little red. I know that I have to sing up, so the end might give you the beginning. It might. And because I'm weird, this is what I did. The yellow book, the 365, I went through all of the songs and I wrote how many songs started on the tonic. How many of those songs start on one of the key? 25% of them. 93 of those songs start on the tonic, which I was surprised by. 38% of them start on the dominant, on the 5 of the key. So, as a rule, more of them start on the dominant. More of them start on the 5 of the scale. So 37% of them started somewhere else. And the end, how in my head, I think, well, whatever key you're in, the note you end on is going to be the one. Well, 8% did not. So most of them do. 8% of songs did not end on one. And so I found 28 of the 365 songs did not end on the one. And 9 of those were Beatles songs. Those darn Beatles. Yeah, they were living on the edge even then. Not just the long hair, but the, harmonically kind of strange. Okay, so those are my thoughts. That's a lot of thoughts. Probably too many thoughts. I'm going to stop there.
This is great. Thank you so much, Monica.
Yeah.
We're so lucky. We've got Monica addressing on group, and Sheridan on individual. It wasn't planned that way, just coincidentally. Isn't that amazing? And so now we're gonna have Bruce. Bruce, are you awake? Bruce and I have been co-teaching a course called Voice over Ook. The original name was Hum and Strum because one of my students said, he would like some help on singing. And I thought, wow, he's a very accomplished player. We've played in group jams together. Why would he need specific help on singing? And then we learned that actually a lot of people can play very well, but they can't sing, or they don't have confidence sing, or they just don't sing. And so we started to teach this class. So Bruce, We're about to teach our
Yeah, we did.
final one next
I
week.
Yes, this is, I don't
Final
remember,
class.
fourth or fifth series that we've done. We've been doing it since November of 2020. I had to look through my back notes and emails, about 120 emails that we've written each other, just concerning hum and strum and voiceover uke since then. So it's been quite a thorough dialogue. Um, yeah, and we have, let's say, upgraded it several times. Indeed, even the name itself changed from hum and strum to voice over uke. It almost sounds like a power struggle. Um, but seriously, as Anne is saying, some people realize that they have difficulty with their singing. Others of us realize it during 3-Chord Thursday that maybe these people should really get together and just one of the last things that Monica was saying, of course, it's not just about developing your voice and the techniques that Sheridan was talking about, but especially the ear. That seems to be the one point that you can get them to breathe properly, sustain, use the diaphragm, have them lay down on their backs with a brick on their stomach. I mean, you can have them jump through circles and do somersaults. But if they're not singing on key, there are some issues to get resolved. Now, this has been particularly a challenge. I was used to teaching young people voice. I've been doing that since the early 90s at the first jazz school in Venice. They generally, that's feasible, by having them cup their hands. If they have both hands free, they can do that. Obviously, with ukulele, you can't use both of your hands. You could have, do an open string and just cup with your left hand. That seems to work. Young people were mostly able to correct themselves, presumably because they don't have any hearing issues. But since the average age of our participants is about my age, and I'm only a few years behind Sheridan. I'm 65, and in fact, my as he was explaining his life with singing, it actually sounded very similar to mine. I started singing in the original octave Over the Rainbow with Judy Garland when I was 6 or 7 years old, and I've never stopped singing since. I played a wind instrument, as Sheridan was saying. Obviously, the voice is a wind instrument. I played clarinet for 8 years, including bass clarinet for 3 years. And by the time I was playing bass clarinet, my voice had changed, fortunately. So when I got to rehearsals late, and it took 5 minutes to put the 5 pieces of the bass clarinet together and lick the reeds, I was in the back row instead of the front row. I was back with the bassoons. And so if I wasn't ready with my instrument, I could just imitate the part with my bass baritone voice, and that actually worked pretty well. They didn't catch you very often, so I that must be why I abandoned the instrument and just kept singing. This is something that really is true. It is a wind instrument, and I really appreciated that perspective that Sheridan gave on that. Getting back to the hearing issue, there are. I think I'm going to have to apply part of what Monica was saying also about let me see, what's one of the last points that she was making? Singing and speaking voice, because there are a lot of them that think that they're singing, but they're still speaking. And I'm sure you've noticed that, Ian, in some of the 3-Chord Thursday singers, that there are still, it can be a specific technique, Sprachgesang, but I don't think that's what's going on. I don't think they're intentionally doing it. I think they think that they're singing, but they're really not. And having them say, hello, Mr. Boreham, in 4 different ways, like you said, and throwing a sung version in there could be a pretty good strategy, as Monica suggested. We developed a lot of the same kinds of exercises with the yawn that Monica was. I often use that that's my go-to warm-up. partly because it's very gentle, and it tends to make the voice all one. Now, that was interesting hearing Sheridan's perspective of saying, well, instead of speaking about head voice and chest voice, it's all mask voice. Well, I think this is part of what we are aiming for when we, even though we're not necessarily singing already in the masculine, we're yawning because it's supposed to be very light and gentle, and it's more internal than in the front of the face. And doing this in such a way that you can barely hear any break between your upper voice and your lower voice. Ideally, this will blend together and make it so there's, a continuity that will help them, even if it is midnight. And of course, a lot of us that have sung in clubs end up singing at midnight. So that's actually not a bad thing, being able to still sing at midnight. As far as, I guess, Anne, you want to talk about some of the issues that our students had difficulty with during these various editions of Hum and Strum.
Yeah, just thanks, Bruce. Just to clarify for everybody, the way we set up the class in Zoom is 1 hour long, and I do the group class, and then people take turns going to the breakout room. So if we have like 30 minutes left, so Bruce actually does the warm up, or he teaches a specific technique in the beginning, and then whatever time's left. So if there's like 50 minutes left, and we have 10 people, then everybody gets 5 minutes each. And then with absences, sometimes we have 5 people, then each person gets 10 minutes. And one of the things we notice is that for adults, actually not everybody, but some people, they don't want to enter the breakout room if somebody else is in there. So we had an issue, or somebody else come in when they're not quite finished. So we had an issue with timing. I didn't think it was such a big issue, but it turned out it was a very big issue, because with a bad experience, they don't want to come back again. And I
Is the
found
bad is the bad
pardon,
experience? Sorry, how is it bad? Like they're
bad, well,
embarrassed,
like,
or somebody's leading it poorly?
no, they're in a private breakout session with Bruce, and then somebody comes in, and then they feel like, well, gosh, I didn't know, mine's done. Maybe they overran, but they were caught with somebody else there listening, or it is somebody's turn, but they feel like the next person hasn't come out yet, so they don't want to go in. So we had an issue in the beginning with some people taking up more time, and some people getting much less time, and then some overlapping, because some people think, well, so what? Why does it matter overlap? I don't mind if people come in when I'm
Yeah,
still singing.
I would say probably 2 out of 3 people are not bothered by it at all. In fact, they kind of enjoy hearing another couple of minutes of the previous person, what they were doing, and they get used to the fact. So I would say that the majority don't really care about it that much, but there have just been a few cases, as Anne mentioned, where they were embarrassed about it. Now, some of these are even group leaders. And that was the surprising thing, that several of these people that had been leading groups for years had significant issues with intonation, especially. And I think, you're telling the emperor that he has no clothes, and they don't want to hear that in some cases like that, especially if they have already been doing that for years. You don't want to be, yes, you have to give them the news, because, we are a mirror. That's part of what a teacher's job is, to let them know what's really going on. And yes, I can help you with this. But you
Yeah.
first have to recognize some issues before you can work on them.
So this made me realize that, your singing voice, for ukulele players, it's a very sensitive topic. When we're in an in-person group session, everyone's bellowing out, singing, You can't tell, who is not. You can't tell if they're singing in tune. But once it becomes the individual voice, it is a big deal. And then the part about intonation is very interesting. We could tune our ukuleles, but we can't tune our voice, because we can't hear it. I'm not saying everybody can't, but it is a challenge. And then to try to get someone to hear themselves and listen. I don't know what the trick is, but they think they are singing in tune, but they're clearly not. So that is the very base thing, which
And
is,
then,
yeah.
yeah.
Go
Then
ahead.
there are other people that have the opposite issue. They are indeed singing in tune. Their tone is pretty good. They could use some of the techniques that Sheridan was talking about before for being able to hold their breath longer and make longer notes and improve their phrasing and tie one phrase to the next. But they need a big dose of confidence, of building their confidence in what they're doing too. So that's really much simpler to do than to correct some of these other issues. And I think Anne and I have been able to do a pretty decent job in giving a good dose of confidence to the people that already have their basic chops together. And I think even in the space of just a few weeks, you can make a significant difference in those cases.
Yeah, we for this last 8 weeks, we developed some take-home vocal exercise things. So I just want to share a little bit before we go on, because I wanted to do this discussion panel, some of the things that we addressed. So, for example, let's see, vocal warm. I'll just share some of these. Like here's a vocal warm up with ukulele. Same note from F to C and back. What I did was I checked out various vocal training, and they're always with the piano. So it's like, well, what are the things we could do? We could sing it and strum it at the same time. And then down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down. So this is chromatic going up. And then we have another one where let me see if I can find another.
Can I just say, Anne,
Yes.
now how you just did it, you sang it an octave lower than you played it.
Oh.
And so, just when people are listening, being
Yeah.
aware of that too, are you matching or are you an octave higher? Men's voices, female voices, whatever. Just a thought, because you could match that one too. Down, up, down, up, down. That's, head voice right away.
Head voice. Yes, that's right. That's right. So then there's also interval training. Can you see the interval training? I think I need to share this one here. Yeah. Interval training. Use the ukulele to guide you. This is to tune your voice to your ukulele, and then various different intervals to make them aware. And there's also interval chart creators, so to get them to do that. What's another one? Oh yeah, warm up with the major scale. So here's warm up with the major scale. So on the low G ukulele, some of the things you can do. On the piano, what we could do and what we could do with the ukulele. So this is just a start of so different notes in each chord, for example. And finally, our last session. So I give out handouts like this. Here's a handout. Voice over ukulele. So how to find your optimal voice range. The last exercise was to use nursery rhymes so you don't have to look at anything, read anything, and then try to figure out what your optimal voice range is. And then we did some modulations, different ways to modulate Yeah, so this is the one. I call it the mindfulness to hear it, feel it, how comfortable you are, and then transpose it to do a kind of a sensitivity analysis to try to reach your highest note that's possible and your lowest note. And we did this in a group session. And yeah, so I guess with reinforcement, it'll work better. So, yeah, Bruce, I think that's about it. Yeah.
Those were most of the issues. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me invite Monica. I'm going to spotlight Monica and then also Sheridan. We're on the platform so we can have a panel discussion in the remaining 10 minutes. And anybody who's there, who's here right now, feel free to ask questions. Maybe you could put it in the chat so we could conduct ourselves in an orderly fashion. Let's see. First of all, any sort of comments? So, Monica, you made a comment about Bruce and me, our session. Sheridan, do you have any comments or questions?
Yeah, just one last comment that I forgot to mention. This is kind of exploring your upper range, and it's related to humming, and this is something I've been working on for the last year or two. Is that when you do when you hum in the mask at the top of your range, what you should observe is there's a, like if you're doing, you should notice that the place where it actually amplifies moves as the pitch moves. It's like it's rising in the nasal passage. It's like there's a sweet spot where the sound occurs almost on its own. And so, and if you can find that, I guess that this is the muscle memory part, is being able to go is being able to reproduce those, because if you can make small sounds like that, I'm a believer that you can make big ones. Just like and then, so if you have a note like this, I know where that is. It's right up here. And then I put more pressure on it and it honks. So it's kind of a curious experience, but part of it is identifying where does it resonate on its own? And it's not in the same spot. It's not just the nose. There's actually a little target spot as you're moving. And the curious thing is, the higher you go, the smaller the target gets. It's harder to actually, this is why we're straining for high notes sometimes, is because we haven't found the spot where the sound actually works on its own. That's just something I've been exploring.
These are such useful exercises, Monica and Sheridan. They're wonderful because this is what we need. Yeah, Monica.
Another little loosening up, making sure you don't seize and do the forcing thing, is to try to do the octave leap really quickly. I might have mentioned this too. Ooh, just go really quick. Ooh, and then slow on the way down with that sweeping all the way through the notes. So then it's not even thinking like what the notes are. It's just about the sounds. If you can do the octave though, quickly, it just flips you there without seizing. It's like you almost trick your vocal cords into getting to a high sound without them going, ah! Ooh, ooh, ooh. I'm not even caring about the pitch so much, just trying to just flip my voice higher. So starting lower. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Just spend some time doing that flip really quickly and just trying to maintain really relaxed. It might be a good warm-up too.
That's a great warm up. One of the things I notice is when in Zoom, if I have to sing solo, right? So like for almost 3 years, I just resorted to my low voice, my chest voice. And then I remember when I was doing group singing, or even when I had vocal training from my conservatory peers, I was able to do, much higher sounds. Maybe it's a kind of, I want to make sure I don't sing the wrong note. So I stopped using my head voice totally, just gone.
Right. It feels more like a performance when you're in your head voice. It's really more in your talking voice range when you're using the low sound, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember the movie The Music Man? There's a scene where Harold Hill is seeing the town council arguing for his credentials, and he's going, "What am I hearing? What am I hearing?" And he goes to the guy with the low voice. He goes, "You, sir, sing ice cream." And the guy goes, "Well, I eat it, but I don't sing it." And he goes, "Singing is just sustained talking." And I somehow I've never forgotten that line. I always thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, so this is cool. All right. Any questions from Mark? Mark, you played the clarinet as well, didn't you?
I
That
did.
was
I did. And the thing about playing a single note instrument when you're little is that you don't learn to appreciate chords as easily. And we didn't talk much about harmony, and maybe that's a topic for a whole separate meeting. But one of the interesting things about learning to harmonize is learning to hear in your head the 3 and the 5, or the 3 and the 5 whatever you want to harmonize. When you hear a note, to be able to hear in your head the note that goes with it. So I'm reading an interesting book called This Is the Voice. I heard the guy interviewed on Fresh Air. And the book started, he's a writer with the New Yorker, and the book started because he was singing with with the Rolling Stone amateur band, and he developed a polyp on his vocal cords. And so he takes people through the journey of his polyp, and then he talks a lot about voices and where in the mouth your sounds come from, and how different vowels come from different places. Anyway, none of it's really pertinent to here, although I've just started reading it. I'm expecting but I think that the relationship between hearing and vocalizing is really important, and I would love to spend a whole hour and a half talking about how, when you're in a group of people, you get them to hear themselves relative to what's going on around them, which is something we haven't been able to do for a couple of years because of Zoom.
Right.
I know the first time that our group met after Zoom last year, we met in the park, and people weren't listening to each other because they weren't used to it.
Mhm.
So, to me, my challenge as a person who's not so much an instructor, but as someone who leads a group, is to figure out ways to get people to hear themselves relative to the noises around them.
Well, that's part of what a choir is about. I mean, people have to get used to hearing themselves and not being thrown off by the other part. You have another part, you have usually, let's say, 4-part choir. That's quite typical. And if you're next to the soprano who's probably singing the melody, you don't want to end up singing her part. That's what part of what it's about. And often you say, okay, you just sing the normal part, and I'll sing a third above that. And as soon as you do, they start copying you again. They start singing a third up. They say, okay, you want to sing that part? Fine, I'll go back down there. And they follow you all over. It's really hard to get them to just stay on one part.
I
Dan
would
had
say
a que- Dan had a question.
I just wanted to say this has been incredibly timeful. For the first time in 2.5 years, my elementary school kids are now able to sing in class again together. So we've just started work on our first songs, because I've spent 10 years turning my school into a singing school. The culture was, this is perfectly normal. Most assemblies there would be some sort of performance. And of course, all of this training that I've put in would always pay off. But of course, everyone's forgotten it. And indeed, I'd gotten lazy and just relaxed and depended on the culture that I'd developed. So, and it came crashing down on me that no, I've got a lot of work to do here. Two examples. One was a grade 4 class. Half of them are breathing like this. A fraction of them are just standing there. Oh, I couldn't possibly do anything. I might make a mistake. So all those. What happens if you make a mistake, kids? The rote response is nothing. That's the correct answer. That's right. But there were kids who didn't know that or knew that but weren't feeling that. So we're working on that. But the thing that really made it obvious was I wasn't thinking about singing in the right register for the kids. I was just so happy to be singing. I was singing as me. And then watching preps trying to sing baritone, hilarious as that was, not helpful to their singing technique. So it made me take that step back and go, what am I doing? Oh, that's right. Back to teaching rather than just enjoying singing. I had a moment of, we're singing, this is great. But now I have to go back to my falsetto range for the preps. But it's great teaching preps because you just tell them, no, well, preps are the best singers in the school. You know how to breathe properly. You know how to do this. And they will just go, oh, okay, yep, we're the best singers of the school. And off they go.
When you say prep, is that an age range?
That they're the 5-year-olds, the first year of...
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah. So that's pre-grade 1.
Pre-grade 1, okay. Monica, you had a point, did you?
I did, but it's gone.
It's gone. Okay. All right.
I had one just for Mark, as I sent this to Anne, but I still believe, B flat is kind of the route to teaching harmony because all of the choices for a major chord are there. And one of the things, if you're with a group and you're saying people get distracted by somebody doing something else, is have them sing the entire arpeggio. And then have somebody hold the bass and the other people sing da, 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 and then have them all move up to the next one. So it's da, da, so you have a 10th chord, which is really the ideal chorus chord. That really brings the angels in for harmony. But really, one of the things to me that it really floats my boat, and I'm sorry we can't do it in person, is to have 3 or 4 part harmony, because that's, it's like, I have to share a story. I used to sing in a barbershop quartet, and we were performing at a local hotel in Ukiah, and that night, Bonnie Raitt's brother lived in Ukiah, and she and her father, John Raitt, who was a Broadway star, came in, and we had just finished our barbershop quartet gig, and I knew David, and I said, oh, I'm going to teach these guys a little 4-part tag, just a couple notes and a couple words. Well, all of them being great singers, we just made this magical blasting chord, and Bonnie Raitt put her arms on my shoulders and wrapped her leg around my back and said, "That's better than sex." So that's my Bonnie Raitt story. But I believe, singing harmony is probably the most fun you can have with your clothes on. So
thank you.
Anyway.
Thank you. So Monica, we reach our ending. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I remember now. And I'm thinking chocolate is also good with your clothes on. But anyway, the choir thing, again, hearing yourself, not to be mistaken with singing louder than everybody so you can hear yourself. It's actually the opposite. It's about matching. It's about blending. It's about being together. And as far as sticking to your own part, one of the best exercises really is to sing in a round. That's probably the most basic way to have people start just being able to hold on to their part without, sneaking into the other group or whatever. So simple rounds are a really good way to develop the ear so that people can sing in harmony. And then partner songs. Those are 2 really good ways to get people to be able to sing in harmony.
Yeah, I have one other thought on that, is that when you're teaching a group to sing harmony, is that they all learn the melody that the lead is going to sing, especially if it's a small ensemble, so that they all learn where the attacks are, the vowel sounds, are making a common sound. And harmony singers are really learning two songs. They're learning the melody, and then they're learning their part in relationship to that melody. And that's, in a lot of respects, that's what makes it fun. And it should be able to, at some point, help you identify whether or not you're being distracted from where you should be. In fact, for me, one of the best things, and they did it in barbershop, and I've done it with other people too, is where you do something improvisationally, and you hear two other people singing, and you can, at a point, you can hear what's left to sing. You can hear the part of the chord that's missing, even and or fourth, at a sixth, at a ninth, at a seventh. I mean, that's when it really gets fun, when you've trained your ear to be able to sing enough different intervals that you can hear a chord going on and find room to participate in it.
Yeah, I think we just started this topic, I feel like. We haven't even talked about harmonizing. And I have to say, all this time in Zoom, I've gotten so out of practice being able to vocally harmonize, being able to hear other people. I invited a few ladies over, last Wednesday, and we did instrumentals. And there's 6 of us, and one of my students raised her hand and said, I'm just having problem hearing myself or hearing others because we're not used to the distance. And then when we got together to sing a song and then I recorded it, I wasn't aware that we were so out of tune until I played the recording back. It's like, oh my gosh, normally I could hear it. So this whole thing about intonation and hearing and all this, I feel like I'm just so out of practice. So I'm going to give it another shot on Tuesday when I've invited people to come and meet me at Harvard University with our ukuleles. But I think what we're really going to be doing is to try to sing together and hear each other and see if we could get back in practice again. So on that note, do we have any suggestions for our next meeting in July? I would love to talk about harmony. How do you harmonize? How do you use the ukulele to help you harmonize? Because that pertains also to arranging music to help you
Yeah,
with the
yeah,
harmonization.
I'd like that.
Yeah.
It would be
Moses,
a
do you
great
have
subject. I won't be here in July, but that's another story. But it's a great subject and
it's
a
a great
vast one,
subject.
a vast
Right.
one too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the other thing I'm thinking that you might be able to, because there's always latency issues about trying to sing together, but if you're holding a note, people can join in and still be able to hear what's going on. So
That's
I have a couple exercises I can think of that might be fun to try in a situation like that. So people can hear the note and then just direct the change, with a hand, and everybody move to the next note. Sing something with 3 or 4 notes and not try and do an entire song, just to experience, the pleasure of making chords with other people.
Let's do that. Sheridan, I would love to have everybody participate in that. So I'm just asking Moses, since you're here, do you have any comments or?
Yeah, I was, I hear a lot of the academic level approaches to teaching a choir, teaching individuals how to sing, teaching smaller groups that are focused on singing, but I didn't hear a lot on practical applications in anything from an ensemble to a group. And I think that's what Mark was saying as well. I use a lot of the different applications. One of the things when I first heard it from James Hill about singing the strings, it was real important to try to figure out how to apply that to a group who wasn't interested in academic theory, wasn't interested in all the academics on how singing works, or even how harmonizing works. You had to trick them into it. So the practical application of everything that we all talked about here, I think that was missed. So as an example, I use sort of a singing in the strings. So I teach my beginners. teach them the scales, because that was important, because eventually I said eventually you're going to start learning how to do finger style, and you need the fundamentals. And once we go from there, I said, okay, now you're going to eventually want to sing with the group. So then I tell them, okay, you need to sing that string. So when you pluck a C note, I want you to sing that C note. So when you sing C or Do, it didn't matter what, solfeggio or the actual note of the name of the note. And if they were off, they can hear other people around them. So I never wanted them to sing loud. Then the major exercise is then split the room into 3 parts and have them start in different points. Because when they sing together and they're all singing all 3 notes, they're moving a pure harmonic chord up the scale and back. And once they hear that, then they get it. Then the light bulbs come on. Then they want more. But until you get to that practical exercise and trick them into the theory, they're not interested. And you're going to lose people. Yeah, go ahead, Mark, because I think you got to say something.
I want to back you up here. I took James Hill's Sing the Strings workshop, and what he did was he divided people into groups, and he said, make the chord shapes for every note, for every chord we're going to play, but only pluck the string that you're assigned to, and sing that note with the string. And this sounds a lot like what you do, Moses, and I would do this in my group if we met in person. And so if you were there and you were assigned to the G string, you would play every chord, but you'd only pluck the G string and you would sing along with it. And you would hear that, you would be forced to sing that note because that's what you were plucking, but you would hear other people singing different notes because they were assigned to different strings. And it really does sell the idea in a very practical way, as Moses said, the whole notion of harmony. I suspect that with anything else, the idea of learning how to hear a note and sing the third of the chord of that note is practice. And the more you do it, the more you say, oh, I know what that sounds like. But his workshop, the Sing the Strings workshop, was an incredible practical application of the idea of harmony.
Yeah,
Can I just say, I did mention singing the strings, but the points that we were to discuss today that Anne outlined didn't have to do with the harmony. So Moses, sorry that you didn't get what you were thinking of, but the points that Anne wanted us to talk about were apparently not what you were looking for. So.
Well, yeah, maybe. But one of the things, and I did want to comment about singing the strings, because that was actually the hardest thing I had to get my club to understand was I had the guys sing the A string and the ladies sing the E string. Mostly because, and it just happens to do where male vocals fall. The guys thought they were singing higher than the ladies. I said, no. So I went and got an oscilloscope and put an oscilloscope in the room and said, now, guys, sing the A string. So what note does that, or frequency is that? And they said, ladies, you sing your E string. They didn't realize because of where the male vocals, it actually automatically flips around. So because guys sing an octave below the standard tuning of an ukulele, and they don't realize it. They think they're singing that note, but they're singing a whole octave below. And what that magic that it does is they think they need to sing the C or this G string. I go, no, because if the guys sing the A, ladies sing the E, when they flip it, they got a tight harmony. Then if the guys were singing the C, they're moving away from the ladies alto section, and that's once they started getting used to that, they go. You can see them playing like this with their instrument next to the ear, and they're holding the chord and picking their note, and they know which note they're supposed to sing.
I think people experience where in their own vocal range they are. And when a guy is singing an E string and a woman is singing an A string, they're probably singing lower. Women are probably singing lower in their vocal range, and men are singing higher in their own vocal range. So their experience of it is that they're singing a higher note, but they're not. And it just is more about this whole process of getting people to hear what they're doing and hear it in relationship to what the noises around them. It's a fascinating topic. I think we could probably spend months on it.
It's like when I was singing the F, but it was actually an octave lower than written. And I'm so used to that, I don't even think about it, but not realizing that might miscommunicate to people that I'm not actually singing the note. So how about we do that then, move on to harmony and then address that? how do you harmonize, what is involved in teaching harmony so that we could hear it and also do that. Okay. Any last other questions? Oh yeah. Do we stick to the third Saturday in July then? Mark, it's okay with you?
Well, I know I'm the problem here, and we're I would say I don't know if I have any plans for us to sing outdoors in July. It really is a COVID-related thing, and up at the moment, COVID cases are up here in the Bay Area, so and people are not behaving like there is COVID anymore. So I don't know that I'm going to meet for us in July. My August meeting, we're arranging to play at a outdoor street festival on the
Oh,
Sunday instead of the Saturday, the third
okay.
Sunday of the month. So I don't think it'll be a problem in August either. And I'm hoping we'll eventually go indoors and then we'll meet in the evening and it won't be a problem at all.
All right.
Which day is it
So
again?
I would say July works for me, August works for me, and we'll see from there.
Okay. Sounds
Is this
good.
Saturday or Sunday?
Saturday
Saturday.
we're meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I won't be there for the third. What is that? The third Saturday. I
Yeah,
would be
third.
there for the second. That's probably true for August as well. But I don't
Oh,
want to make everybody move. I mean, of course, you have your
I can
standard.
meet second Saturday.
So
so
if that works for other people, the second Saturday would be better.
so the 9th of July instead of the 16th?
Yeah, I don't know.
So if we change it to the 9th, then we'll move it to every second Saturday. Would that work for everybody here? Let's see, Monica's left. So we also have a few others that we didn't get to talk to, but okay.
Yeah.
And do
Should
you
we
want to
set it?
canvas us by email or something?
Yeah, maybe I'll do that. Let's do that. I like that word, canvas, everyone. Okay, well, big thanks to Sheridan, Monica, Bruce. Thank you for sharing this. Packed with exercises and tips. I can't wait to watch the video again. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you,
All right.
Anne.
Take care. Thank you.
Okay.
Everybody stay safe. Be
Thanks.
well.
Okay.